Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to another driver ratings. It is the day after race day and we had Sochi, the Russian GP, a classic track, one that everyone looks forward to on the calendar because race after race after race, it delivers.
Yeah.
And, wow, it delivered yesterday.
Wow. Exciting stuff.
Lewis Hamilton didn't win. So, therefore,
to be fair, for Sochi, it did have a bit more excitement than usual.
There was certainly
it wasn't the worst race of the calendar.
No.
Yeah.
It wasn't. There was some interesting action throughout. But as usual, if you don't realise what kind of driver ratings is, very simple. We go through all the teams on the grid, kind of where they finished in race order, and rate those drivers out of 10 on their race performance. We might bring in a little bit of kind of qualifying, just to kind of bring some context for some. But yes, essentially, that's what we do. So we're going to make our way through all the teams now. Unfortunately, as usual, at the back of the grid, it's Williams.
It's Williams, who looked dreadfully slow in Sochi this week. Really not anywhere near. I think the only person they got near was Romain Grosjean, because he was a two-stopper or three-stopper, I don't know. He was going down the safety route. But we'll come on to Grosjean. Williams, yes. George Russell in P18 and Nicholas Latifi in P16. Yeah. Latifi beat Russell. Qualified behind, beat Russell. So I'll give Latifi a 7 and Russell a 6. Bada bing, bada boom. Nothing really eventful. Pace was nowhere there, but Latifi did the job on first lap. And
I think that's fair. I think you could have even been a little bit harsher on George Russell, because obviously he did, when he was fighting, make a mistake, lock up into the corner, which ruined his set of tyres, which meant that he had to pit again later on.
Yes. But then he was probably always, I guess, another pit, But the car's still terrible, so, you know.
Nah, it is what it is with George Russell. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Again, just the Williams pace. Unfortunately now, after early optimism, and George, another great weekend getting that car into Q2, in race, they just have no pace.
Yes.
They are literally Haas of last year, combined with Williams of last year. Because they've got a little bit of qualifying pace at the very least. But moving on to the first Ferrari-powered car, and that is Haas. And Kevin Magnussen, brilliant race. I think he deserves an 8 out of 10, maybe even potentially a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, fantastic first lap, as usual from Kevin.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give Kevin Magnussen a 9 out of 10 because he just finished just outside the points. But that Haas car looks so... actually, no, he did lose out to Giovinazzi. Drop it. 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10.
Bad.
If he'd managed to keep ahead of Giovinazzi, I think that would have been impressive on that front. But still, that Haas is such a terrible car. Brilliant start from K-Mag, as usual. Really good from him. Romain Grosjean, complaining about the car all weekend. Had a good start with Magnussen, because after the safety car, him at the start, both Hasses were running in the points in 9 and 10, which was crazy to see them. Last time that happened, I think, was Hungary. After they had a bizarre reason in that kind of early rain-affected / not rain-affected.
It was the strategy call of the season, which got punished.
It was indeed.
Yes.
Classy on that. But yes, Grosjean locked up, few mistakes, almost got a penalty, smashed the bollards. I don't know what really was going on. But yeah, Romain Grosjean,
he couldn't handle it.
Bless him, struggled. He didn't have a good race. I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10 because although the car was awful, there were obviously some driver mistakes in there as well.
Yeah, and Kevin Magnussen still brought it home 4 places up the road.
Correct. You know, Grosjean no doubt qualified Magnussen.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yes, go from that. But yeah, that's Haas.
On to McLaren. with Norris finishing an incredible P15. Yikes. And obviously SAINZ retiring on the first lap after complete driver error, smashes into the wall on the barriers. Weaving around the barriers, just clipped the wall and took his tyre out. So yeah, bad day for SAINZ and no pace for McLaren went bold. They pitted Norris under safety car and then tried to go to the end on about 40 plus old hard tyres. And it just didn't quite work out in the end, which is why he finished all the way down in P15. But they were still only squabbling for a point. So McLaren's pace wasn't there. So Norris, you can't really mark him down too badly because he raced well. So I'm thinking a 6.
Yeah, I think 6 is probably fair for Lando. He gave it his absolute best, but the car just wasn't beneath him, and he suffered some sort of thing from the Carlos Sainz.
Yes.
So Sainz not only stuffed his own race, but also it would appear Lando's race as well, because Sainz clipped the tyre of Norris. Something went wrong. Norris's car had no pace from there. Yeah. And from starting in the top 10 for both McLarens turned out to be a very poor weekend for them.
Disaster. And is no score for Sainz, although he would have got a very low score if we gave scores to retirees.
He certainly would have. Moves us on to our next one, which is Alfa Romeo. And not a bad weekend, all things considered, for Alfa Romeo. Giovinazzi beating the Ferrari of Sebastian Vettel.
Yep.
Kimi Raikkonen going on a long stint, a little bit compromised. He had an issue in qualifying at the end, didn't he, that saw him go out in Q1.
Wide,
yeah, so that stuffed him up for the race. He had some good early stints, was fighting people, making himself difficult to get past. But it's probably a 5 out of 10 for Kimi because it was a bit of a meh, nothingness race. Nothing really kind of happened from there. But Gio, I think that's probably the best that Alfa probably are. We've given Kimi similar sort of scores for that performance, so I reckon 8 out of 10.
Could be one of his best races of the season, finishing P11 with only 2 retirees. I know he got points on the first race, but only how many cars finished in Austria again? Wasn't it like 12 or something?
Yeah.
So there was like
might have
points
been 11.
Guaranteed.
I think it was 11, and Latifi was the 11th car.
So with 18 cars finishing, he coming in P11. That's probably like best race of the season for him.
I think it was a very strong performance from Antonio Giovinazzi, and when others made mistakes, obviously it's been a criticism I think we've said of Giovinazzi in terms of his consistency as a driver. Actually this weekend drove a very consistent race and was able to take advantage of mistakes around him.
Yeah, and it's that pressure. He is the driver under pressure at the moment, with Schumacher just unstoppable at the moment in F2. And it looks unstoppable. He's going to take Gio's seat unless he starts turning up.
Let's be honest, though. It's maybe just Giovinazzi enjoying his last races as a Formula 1 driver. Because Mick Schumacher, again, extending his lead in the championship this weekend, looks likely to win the Formula 2 championship and be promoted into that Alfa Romeo seat.
Yeah.
I would say so. Yeah, Alfa Romeo. There you go. Kimi 5, Gio 8.
Bam. On to Ferrari, because Sebastian Vettel finished P13 behind Kevin Magnussen and Antonio Giovinazzi, obviously missing out on the podium on the Ferrari Power Championship. But yes, P13 for Vettel, not a great race. Again, he can't get anything more from the car. So I'm going to give him a 6 because he still finished above where he qualified, but he still finished miles behind Charles Leclerc, who had a fantastic race in P6.
Also have to bear in mind that maybe Vettel was used to aid Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc definitely had a better race, but I think Vettel was used as a bit of a roadblock to Ocon, which then allowed Charles Leclerc to come out ahead of Ocon. But not necessarily bonus points for Seb, but he did good work for the team there. Yeah,
6 overall though. But Charles Leclerc in P6 for Ferrari, which P6 for Ferrari this season is a great result. Fantastic result. Looked like he may have, with the Ricciardo penalty, maybe it was going to nick P5, just didn't have the pace. But held Ocon off, even extended the gap to Ocon to, I don't know what it was in the end, it was like 7 or 8 seconds. It's an incredible drive for Charles Leclerc. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10.
I would have even gone as high as a 9.
Could have given him a 9. I'm going for an 8 though.
There we go. 8 out of 10. That's you guys disagree. Comment down below.
I just thought maybe he could have pushed Ricciardo, but I don't know how much was left in the car.
Oh, I have no idea. He did have the fresh set of tyres. Who knows? Ricciardo's one of the drivers for the season for me, in incredible form, and drove another great race for him. All things considered, bar that one mistake. But we'll get on to with Daniel Ricciardo. But I believe next up on that front is actually the Red Bulls, isn't it?
Yes, with Alexander Albon in P10.
Yes, so Alexander Albon, podium last time out in Mugello, was obviously, you know, the big performance he needed to kind of boost his confidence. Qualifying was awful. Qualifying, what was it, over a second behind Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
And had a poor start, had a gearbox change, so he started P15, had a poor start, so he was P17, pitted under safety car to go on the hards, got about 26 laps out of those, I think 26, 36 laps, something about that range, before switching on to the mediums, and managed to scrape into the points at the end. So you could argue he's done well for that performance, but his teammate again is split in the Mercedes. He's nowhere where he needs to be. At this stage of the season, there aren't any excuses. He's made his own bed here and he's got to lie in it. So 4 out of 10. Probably the same as Grosjean. It's not a great weekend for Alex Albon.
Yeah.
Max Verstappen, on the other hand, Charles Leclerc was an 8 out of 10. Max Verstappen's an 8 out of 10. Did what he needed to do. Lewis got the 10-second penalty. Didn't have a car that could challenge Valtteri Bottas at any stage of the Grand Prix. Just kind of maintained the gap and kind of was within his window. Lewis obviously pitting before him meant that he had the tyre life advantage to maintain that gap to Lewis. And yeah, I don't think Lewis was probably pushing too much on there. I think Lewis was probably very frustrated on that aspect. But yes, 8 out of 10 for Max Verstappen. Couldn't really do much more.
They're fitting to the Mercedes sandwich again this season.
But funnily enough, it's the opposite way with Bottas ahead and Lewis
different
in
top slice.
P3.
Different bottom slice.
There's some weird slices going on.
But Max is still the same filling in the middle.
Bloody hell. But yes, there you go.
There we go. Who's next? So Albon was P10, so P9 was...
Gasly.
Gasly, thank you.
You're welcome.
P8 and P9 for AlphaTauri. Great double points finish for both of them. KVYAT. I'll start with Pierre Gasly finishing in P9. Had a solid race. He was one of the ones that pitted early for the hards? Went long? No, that was KVYAT. No, KVYAT started on the hards, and I think they pitted Gasly early to go onto the hards. Had a good, decent stint. Was behind KVYAT for most of the race. As soon as KVYAT went longer on his hard tyres, obviously starting in P11. Stayed behind KVYAT for most of the race. They pitted him again under virtual safety car, hoping it was a bit longer, so he lost out positions, but then fighted back, overtaking Alex Albon and Lando Norris to get P9 in the end. Solid drive for him, but being by his teammate, 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that's a fair result for Pierre Gasly this weekend.
Yep. Daniel KVYAT on the other hand, started P11, started on the hards, went very long and built the window, pit window up enough, and came out in P7. P8. Challenging Esteban Ocon in P7, but just couldn't make the move done. He had plenty of DRS, plenty of laps under DRS. I know he was kept going out and in the window. You'd thought with fresher tyres he could have made the move done. So I would have given him a 9 if he beat Esteban Ocon, because I feel he should have. He's going to be an 8 out of 10.
I still think it's a fantastic performance from Daniil Kvyat, and he's probably my driver of the day. I think in his home Grand Prix, you know, he's been under the pump a bit recently. It was a really good performance from him in his home race.
But if it was Pierre Gasly, does Pierre overtake Esteban Ocon?
Probably, yes. That's besides the point. Gods, don't make points. That's not going to happen in here. Points, they can go. Well, they both score points, so
they both got points.
They both got points. But we move on to mentioned them there. The Renaults, and interesting. We'll start off Esteban Ocon. Mixed day for Renaults. Probably could have been a day that could have worked out a lot better. But worked out still okay. Daniel Ricciardo finished in P5 where he started, and Ocon, did he start P7? I can't remember off the top of my head, but he finished P7.
Solid.
There, behind the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, lost a gap to Charles Leclerc. I don't know whether he struggles again. Ocon isn't really making the overtakes when he needs to. Tyre life goes, suffers later on in the race, and lost out to Charles Leclerc on that. Daniel Ricciardo had to be let by on team orders because Ocon wasn't making the progress that was needed past Sebastian Vettel. So for that's got to be poor. It's not a great weekend for Ocon, although P7's good result, so you can't rate him too harshly, but I'd want to go 5 out of 10, but I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10.
I think that's probably fair.
He looked so good in the first half of the race, but when he got stuck behind Vettel, it was kind of the end there, because then team orders came into effect, came out behind Leclerc, and it was just a disaster for him after that.
Strangely enough, overtaking does seem to be an issue for Ocon. It's not the first time this season he's got caught behind someone that he needed to get past sooner. For now, Daniel Ricciardo for me, almost had a great start. I don't know if something went wrong in his car because he just seemed to drop, or whether it was just driver error and he just kind of dropped through the field. But after making early places on Perez and Max Verstappen, running in the podium position, he then dropped back and was behind his teammate, got past his teammate on team orders. It's probably a 7 out of 10, probably for Daniel Ricciardo this weekend. He's started 5th, which is where that Renault looked good all weekend in terms of pace-wise, and finished 5th. So he's got the job down. Ricciardo's standards have been pretty good this season, so I can't really rate him too well in this situation.
Yeah, it just... The penalty, like you said, he qualified 5th, finished 5th, so 7, solid. Moving on to the guy who finished P4, which was Checo Perez. Just remembered, one of the best races of the season for him, barring the probably Styria Grand Prix, either of the Austria or Styria Grand Prix were great for him. Didn't see him at all. No TV coverage for Checo, other than I don't think we even saw him cross the line. He finished P4. He lost out to the Renaults at the beginning, qualified really well, lost out to the Renaults, and then overtook them, never looked back. Because of Ricciardo's time penalty, no pressure there. Great race for Checo. I'm going to go for a 9 out of 10 for Checo.
Oh, your driver of the day.
Yeah, solid. P4. We never saw him, but it was just a great drive. He finished 10 seconds ahead of Ricciardo.
That was pretty mega
incredible.
Actually from Perez. He just absolutely, compared to where the Renaults and Racing Points were pretty neck and neck all weekend, to just kind of, that may have been a little bit to Daniel kind of backing off, and then obviously he got caught in traffic behind Vettel. But Perez did the job he needed to do, and it was a brilliant race from him.
Stroll, on the other hand, not on the other hand, it kind of sounds like Stroll had a bad race. He didn't have a race.
He had a brilliant start.
Yes, he had a great start, was right with his teammate, probably would have finished ahead of Checo because he was looking very quick, but just got tagged by Leclerc, exiting turn 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that it? 5?
It's
6?
Yeah, I think it was 5.
5. Just
I don't know.
tagged, and then that was his race. So no score for Stroll. Could have been great though. Great start. But we didn't see how it would develop.
We didn't. And rounding off with Mercedes as per usual, and Lewis Hamilton actually, I'm going to say it, I think he was unlucky in terms of, you know, Froome was a bit like, oh, he's not unlucky because he did it. And I was like, well, the team have screwed Lewis Hamilton over. Very rarely do Mercedes get things wrong, but they screwed over. But you win and lose as a team, so I wouldn't expect Lewis to kind of blame the team too much. But for some reason, he went to do a practice start. He didn't do it there. He then went further down in a really weird position to practice a practice start on the outlap. And he got penalised for both separate incidents. And with a 10-second penalty and the fact that he had to start on the softer compound and then go longer on the hards anyway, it basically stuffed him for the race.
Yeah.
And allowed Valtteri Bottas to have an easy cruising win. So, what do we say? He's not really great, but he didn't really... He just did what he needed to do. Probably 7 out of 10 for Lewis.
7, yep. Still on the podium. Still have to get through traffic. I know he's in the quickest car out there, but yeah, podium.
Yeah, absolutely. And Valtteri Bottas, winner of the race. He's finally won a race again in this kind of mad 2020 season. Look, fortune favoured him. He was able, actually, he got a great start, in fairness to Valtteri Bottas, got ahead of Max Verstappen.
Yeah. Challenging Lewis into turn 1, but classic Bottas backed out.
That he always knew that he was going to get another opportunity.
Well, I guess he didn't back out, he just mucked it out.
He probably knew also a little bit that there was most likely a penalty going to be happening.
Of course.
Realistically, that's just
he was like, I'm not going to make the move here because there's a penalty coming.
Yeah, well, that's realistically just Valtteri Bottas in turn 1.
I could do it.
But credit where credit's due, and this is one of Valtteri Bottas' strengths. When he can lead a Grand Prix in clean air, in a great car, he's very good at just consistently putting in the laps and putting in a flawless race. And from that point on, when he took the race lead, it was flawless for Valtteri Bottas, and yeah, it didn't really... There's nothing really more to say on that front.
No,
he just got the job done. So I'm also going to give him a 9 out of 10, just because he did what he needed to do.
Yep.
And
he got the fastest lap.
And he's won a race.
Well.
Yeah. So big points for Valtteri Bottas on that front. But that concludes driver ratings for another week, guys. We hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure you comment down below with your driver ratings and who you thought were the standout performers of the race, the iconic driver race. Make sure you check out Appy as well. Appy always kind of puts a comment of our average ratings of the race so far, so it'll be very interesting to see there. I think the top 5 will pretty much be the same going into things. Yeah. Bottas might have gone up a little bit because we've been rating him harshly in weeks gone by. But yes, no, it'd be great to see you guys comment on that. But if you're new around here or haven't done so already, Stephen, what can they do?
They can like, subscribe and ding that bell.
Ding it. That's it from us. So for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.